Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to be looking at the timeless best of one metagame breakdown, where we look at the best performing timeless best of one decks on the MTG Arena ladder. We are going to be looking with the data from Untapped.gg, what you see on the screen, a companion tool that aggregates users' win rate. So if you're using the tool, it'll track your win rates, then pulls them all together. The link for Untapped is in the video description down below. And I'll link all these deck lists, timestamp them. You can get all the details as always. We'll be recording best of three probably in a day or so. So from the last week's video, I did mention that show and tell and the special guest cards were bugged. They weren't showing up into the data source. I've been working with the team at Untapped. We've been going back and forth with some tickets. So it's been resolved, which is great. We can see it, and we're starting to get some data, some at least decks tracked for those decks. The one caveat being it was fixed last night, like really late. I got a message in like the middle of the night, and it's just slowly accumulating data now. So we do have one of the deck lists. So kind of the more cheat the fatties into play version of show and tell as opposed to dedicated combo. So that's the only version right now that's showing win rate stats. The others, there's some deck lists that are showing, but they don't have the accompanying win rates to kind of show the nuance between the versions. So I'm hoping, give it another week, we should have all the variants kind of coming in. The one thing you'll notice as well is just on this main screen here, where we usually look at the popularity of decks, because it's only been tracked for less than like 24 hours, it's not feeding into the popularity right now. So in time, we should get this in, and it's kind of been fixed going forward. So bit of an annoyance for all of us. The great team was great there. I annoyed the hell out of them in the creator Discord. So shout out to them there for addressing the issue and fixing it. So we will jump in. We're going to look at popularity first, and then we will look at the deck lists themselves. But before we do all that, just a quick friendly reminder. You'll see the sub goal at the top right-hand corner. We're trying to hit 15,000 subs on YouTube. If you haven't subbed, it's free on YouTube. It just helps support the channel. If you have subbed, thank you. As always, likes and comments on the video do help a lot, and I'd greatly appreciate it if you can. All are free and easy ways to help out. I don't ask for Patreon. I don't ask for donations. I don't ask for any of that. It's free as much as possible, just to help with the YouTube algorithm. So we're going to jump in. Popularity of the day. And it's kind of flattened, all things considered. We're going to look Diamond to Mythic rank. And 5-color domain is in the top slot at 8%. Rakdos Burn 6.5%, and then we just kind of fall down into like 2%, 2%, 2%. So it's kind of flattened out and normalized relative to like what we saw. We saw the Rakdos Burn list show up as like high as like 18%. The Mirror Dredge at one point was very high, and then we're just kind of seeing even like the Leyline deck that had a big spike in popularity has seen pretty dramatic decreases, all things considered. We add in just some of like these other ones, we're just seeing like whole bunch of just kind of coming in at that like 1%. So the format is pretty open. I'd imagine show and tell is still fairly popular. When I was playing some best of one, like Burn's probably one of the more popular ones, the Leyline deck. So Leyline has moved over. You may want to consider, if you're in a black-based deck, to either have Sheoldred's Edict or Sudden Edict, just having some answers to the Geist itself. I think discard's at a premium right now with all the combo decks, so that's another thing. If you're building your mid-range piles, you may want to consider, going up to this 6 to 7 discard package, your Inquisitions and your Thoughtseizes as well. Sorry about the duck. So we're going to jump in. We're looking February 6th through the 22nd. I just wanted to do a larger data source just to kind of pull things in, kind of encompassing all the new cards that may have been showing up, and we actually got some new kind of variations of decks that showed up this week as well. So we're going to jump into it. First deck is Esper Leyline Geist. So interesting to see that they've dropped the number of Leylines to only 12. So this does reduce some of the consistency of the deck. You will, like most of the time, like if we look at the more traditional Geist version, it is on 16. So you're kind of lowering your number. It does kind of influence, but you are kind of offsetting it with more interaction. You have both course defense, you have the spell pierces, so a lot more disruption, you have a lot more enchantments as well. But for those of you who haven't seen this deck, basically what happens is you mulligan till you have a Leyline, 1 land, as well as Fragment Reality. You target your own Leyline, you get Geist into play, then you basically suit it up and then kind of go from there. We're seeing the version incorporate Brainstorm as well as fetch lines, just to have kind of, you could shuffle away the ley lines that you don't need, that you draw. Incidentally, both of these ley lines also are quite helpful in certain matchups. So if you get multiple ley line hands, Void shuts off some stuff, Sanctity shuts off like Hand Hate and Burn that's targeted to your face as well. I tried out like the other version for a video. Like when it got popular, I tried out the deck just to see if it was viable. It's very much, you just keep mulliganing until you get it. It's not fun if you win. It's not fun if you lose. It's just more frustrating than anything. But in any case, up next, 5-color Winota. This is a list then from best of 3 poured over from Alpha MTG. I had a nice run with it. So it's kind of combining elements, bunch of just accelerants, Boreal Grazer, Kami, Paradise Druid. So you have a natural order package with all these green creatures. You could get Atraxa, Craterhoof, or Galta. So you can also dump stuff from your hands. You can also just naturally attack in with Winota. You can hit Agent of Treachery as kind of the big payoff there, as well as Boromir, which shuts off anything being cast for free from Omniscience. It's also a protection spell in a way, which is kind of nice. Grizzled Huntmaster lets you kind of later in the game chuck away these ones you don't need and then seek from your sideboard any of the creatures. Now the thing is, in best of 1, you're seeing like a card like Deafening Silence, which normally is not great. In best of 3, sorry, in best of 1, it's more a best of 3 card. Can't tutor with the Huntmaster, so you're better off just playing like another spell. So something like a Reclamation Sage maybe, or just another utility creature. More often than not, you're probably grabbing Winota or like Archon Emeria. The one thing you'd probably want if you have the Grizzled Huntmaster is potentially either a way to shut off graveyards. There's a lot of creatures that incidentally exile graveyards. Even something like a Scavenging Ooze might be something you want to consider, or just kind of a hate bear piece, really. So you're kind of going there. We're seeing some of the new Surveil lands also getting featured in this deck as well. From there, we go to Rakdos Burn. So this was a deck that I was playing a bit of in Best of 1 as I was doing my run to Mythic. I think it's reasonable in the meta with a lot of show and tell. You can just kind of outpace them in terms of damage. The Eidolons do a good job of just punishing them as they kind of go through and churn. And then the removal is flexible because it's both burn and then can also deal with your opponent's creatures. All things considered, just nice low to the curve. 2 Ragavans is probably the sweet spot that you want. If anything, I would probably find space for the 3rd Light Up the Stage just to have access to a little bit more card advantage, all things considered. Kind of going from there, the nice thing is with this mana base as well is they've trimmed on the number of unnecessary pain lines. So I'm actually curious, just taking a look. Where's Burn? I was playing this a lot on just like on the iPad. So on this one here, I'm on 4 Light Up the Stage, 2 Skewers, 1 for 8, 12, 16, 17 lands. So I just trimmed on Akiba. That was what I cut. And in lieu, I'm just playing the full Skewer set. But I was enjoying this deck here. It's good. Get wins games fast, and it punishes kind of stumbles out of your opponent. From there, we'll go to 5-color Domain Zoo, and we are seeing some copies of Breakout come in. So this allows you to cheat into play creatures from your library and then give them haste for end of turn. Works really nice with Neshiba Brawler and Territorial Kavu. A lot of burn in this list. You're also seeing Inti seeing some play, so a lot lower curve. Because you are playing Breakout, you really want to up the density of 1 and 2 mana creatures. Just to allow you. Now, the one thing I will say, 21 creatures is a little low in terms of Breakout. You probably want like mid-20s, similar to Collected Company. I did whiff a couple times. I have a video of this deck in Best of 3 that we were trying out. But Stubborn Denial is necessary right now with the combo decks. You have Leyline that can also target their Omniscience, which is nice. And then you have your Burn that's scalable. The deck itself is a little soft to Blood Moon, and at times against the Burn deck can fall behind when you are playing, a lot of fetch shock kind of approach in terms of the deck. From there, we go to 4-color Humans. Yes, Humans. We have white cards that are legally allowed to be registered. They do die to Bowmaster in some cases, but gee golly darn, we are trying. But you have Avacyn's Pilgrim, Esper Sentinel. Pilgrim's nice just as a mana accelerant. And then just this deck's Hate Bears. So Thalia's Lieutenant puts counters on everything, gets bigger with subsequent creatures being cast that are humans. Lavinia stops any sort of like... It's actually incidentally kind of cool against Titan, because if they use the like Citadel or stuff like that to cheat in the Titan, in terms of reduce, like you tap 3 lands, it'll counter it. No, non-creature spells, never mind. My mistake there. But Omniscience, it'll shut off and stuff like that. So which is at least nice that way there. Peddler is basically Thoughtseize on it. You have Dennick that shuts off graveyard interaction. Charming Prince can reset, enter the battlefield style effect, so you can reset your Peddlers, stuff like that. Extraction Specialist kind of rebuys your Hate Bears. Kudro's Graveyard Hate and a Lord effect. Kitesail Larcenist is pseudo removal, and Reflector Range is tempo play. Really cool with this list is you're playing 16 soul lands, so just lands that tap for any color, and you also get access to Cavern for counter spells, and then Razor Verge Thicket. So no fetches in this particular list. Then go to Rakdos Storms, pretty much stock. This version, the only kind of difference you see is some folks will be on Deathrite Shaman, instead of the Regavan's main. I think I would at very least play the full set of Stitchers over Regavan, like trim on that. I just think, all in all, this card dies to a lot of the stuff in the format right now. But this deck is basically a fair mid-range deck that you eventually fill your graveyard, you cast Underworld Breach, you chain together Dark Rituals, you mill yourself over with like Stitcher Splire, Dragon Rage Chandler, and then you have 4 tutors to find your Tendrils of Agony, or just naturally mill it over, and then you storm kill your opponent out that way there. Kind of fun. This deck's $1,700 in paper, which is wild. Moving on, we have our Omnitell deck. So 64% win rate, and I mentioned this is a creature-focused version. I believe this came from Saffron, all of this particular variant. The other version you'll see frequently is using like Mastermind's Acquisition as a way to kind of tutor for combo kills. Core of the deck, just early acceleration. This one's on like Deathrite Shaman. Some lists are playing no creatures like in the 1-drop slot. You have assembled a team as well as Demonic Tutor to kind of find your pieces. Ideally what you do is you show and tell for Omniscience, and then in this particular version you're using things like Atraxa or Grizzlebrand, or even casting Emrakul to take over their turn. You can also use Chroma's Memorial, which will give your creatures haste, so that's kind of, it is a pseudo combo kill that's all self-contained. You're not relying on a sideboard in this particular case. Leveraging as well some of the Surveil lands just to kind of shape up your draw through fetches. Moving on, we go to Izzet Tempo. So this is kind of Izzet Blood Moon, non-Phoenix, Phoenix kind of deal. So you have your DRCs, just a bunch of cheap counters. Spell Pierce is probably really well positioned right now. Counter spells, Memory Lapse. You have Blood Moon to punish the greedy mana bases, and then access to 8 pieces of cheap removal. This version is Regavan, DRC, as well as Ledger Shredder as your primary win conditions from the deck. You can also play Jinganta in this list. So you should play Jinganta. Actually, you can't because of Counterspell. So it's actually an interesting consideration. Do you forgo Counterspell in order to then just like shift it to Memory Lapses and instead just play Jinganta, which gives you another threat? It's an interesting kind of consideration in terms of how you want to approach it. But in this particular version, you're only on 8-11 threats. So something to just keep in mind, no utility lands. You may in that case just want to play a utility land, but then at the same time you have Blood Moon, which would impact your ability to kind of animate something like a Den of the Bugbear. It's an interesting kind of theory. Counterspell being hard countered, Memory Lapse being tempo based. Most of your deck is tempo based. So I always find that like push and pull with Jinganta is always interesting. To what end are you willing to forego? We then move to Mono Black. So the deck itself is kind of shifted. I know last month I had a lot of success with the Devotion versions. Unfortunately, they kind of suck against a lot of the combo decks. So we're seeing the decks shift into more of kind of fair mid-range decks that just incidentally have Necropotence for value. Still get to abuse Dark Ritual, Necropotence draws, but you also have like Dark Ritual until turn 2 Ring. If you're really lucky, turn 1 Ring. Ring Shieldred plays really nice. We're seeing the package of Duress and Thoughtseize. I would probably play Inquisition and Thoughtseize just because Inquisition can hit creatures as well. A lot of the decks are Lurrus piles, so just having something that's live against some of the other decks could be reasonable. Still March to discard a bunch of cards and gain a bunch of life. Some Lurruses rebuys your Bowmasters and Baubles. Graveyard Trespasser for some graveyard hate. And then fewer Field of Ruins in this version. A castle, some hives mixed into there as well. So just kind of the evolution of the mono black deck. From there we go to mono green Titan. So this version is a Karn based version. So you have your Spelunkings, your Elvish Rejuvenators. Notably, this version is not on the new Charm. Some of the versions are incorporating the Charm, lets you tutor lands, also main board answer to Blood Moon, stuff like that. This version, you have Titan, that's main board hate for like Omniscience. The Karn also can fetch various hate pieces, so Graveyard hate, Artifact Enchantment hate, blow up lands, activated abilities, combo hate, Thorn of the Amethyst, can tax your like show and tell decks with the non-creature spells, Wormcoil Engine as a way, Lifelink, and then Cityscape Leveler, also another threat. Now the one thing, Cityscape Leveler is a cast trigger, which is often better, but against show and tell, Meteor Golem might be something you want in the sideboard since it enters the battlefield and blows something up. So that's another kind of consideration as you kind of go through there. Moving on, we go to, they're calling it Grixis Shadow, but it's really just Grixis kind of mid-range. So no Death Shadows in this version. It is still leveraging like your Inquisitions, notably no Thoughtseize, which is kind of interesting. But Fatal Pushes, Lightning Bolts, bunch of Spell Pierce for disruption. So just a whole bunch of tempo interaction. You have Test of Talents, just completely erase show and tell from your opponent. Sudden Edict, like I mentioned, for the Geist matchup. Bowmasters, just a lot of counter spells, a lot of interaction on the stack, and then you have Treasure Cruise to refill kind of mixed into there. So if you like Grixis, kind of tempo-y elements, there's a lot of kind of cool stuff happening here. I think I'd probably play this version over the Izzet version. It's kind of interesting because I think the Izzet version's better if you're running into more fields because this deck's going to struggle against Field of the Dead. Just having access to Blood Moon can auto-win you some games. But against, I think, the more combo decks, having access to the discard probably is a little bit better. And then lastly, this one was Platinum to Mythic rank, so it's just showing up in Platinum. It's a wild one. It is a Realmbreaker, the Invasion Tree combo deck. So basically what happens is you cast this legendary artifact, you tutor your deck for channel, you make 10 mana, you activate Realmbreaker, you get all these Praetors into play. Notably, Urabrask gives your Praetors haste, and you get to just kind of attack with the entire Phyrexian invasion. Shelly, Vorinclex, OG Vorinclex, new Vorinclex, you got Jin, Elish Norn, Big Shieldred, you have Leyline of Sanctity to protect yourselves, some elves to kind of get you ahead. So it's kind of like Elements of Belcher, but attacks it like with an actual attack element. Again, Karn package in here for protection, and we see a lot of those similar kind of effects in this sideboard as well. That's it for the week. Let me know what you've been playing, what you've been enjoying. If you are, I'm very curious how much you're running into show and tell as we kind of go from there. But we'll catch you next week, and I'll do the best of 3 as soon as we have a bit more data coming in. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you have a great one, and stay safe out there.